So, we finally made it. The NBA regular season is over, is done, is dusted. Everyone's records is placed. And now it's time for the NBA playoffs, the main bulk, the meat of the season, the thing we've all been waiting for. And this video is just going to be a prediction video. I'm going to talk about the different brackets and who I think is going to advance into the next round of the playoffs. We're going to kick things off in the West with the number 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder versus either the number 8 seed Sacramento Kings or the number 9 seed New Orleans Pelicans. Of course, the Pelicans and the Kings are playing in a play-in tonight to qualify for that 8th seed to play against the Thunder. Now, the Thunder are a strong outfit. SGA is one of the more consistent players in this league, especially because his team has finished number 1 in the West and he's averaged over 30 points per game all season long, which has then also voted him into the possible MVP discussion. Now, when it comes to the Thunder, although they have had so many wins in the regular season and have proven they are not a team to be underestimated, they are still a team that are quite inexperienced, especially in the playoffs where basketball changes. It becomes a bit more desperate. Defense becomes more tight. Scoring a bucket becomes more difficult. I would say the Thunder do have the arsenal equipped to be able to get points and go on runs. However, I would say they face a challenge against Pelicans or the Kings, whoever they may face, when it comes to interior defending. They have a second-year player, but technically a rookie in Chet Holmgren, who has played his first full regular season with the Thunder. And although a very talented player, I would think he would struggle and possibly could get dominated by potentially a Zion Williamson, who has elite interior scoring, relentless interior scoring, or against a Sabonis for the Kings, who he pretty much averages, 15 and 10 a game minimum. And he can really dominate off the glass for rebounds for the Kings. So I would say OKC, they kind of match up a bit awkwardly with whichever one they get. However, for the amount they score and for what they've been doing all regular season, they should brush aside Kings or Pelicans, whoever that may be who gets through to face them. I do think it's important to mention, though, out of the Kings and the Pelicans, I do think the Kings are stronger to face up with OKC just because they have more options when it comes to scoring the ball. I would think, of course, it goes like Sabonis and Fox, and then it probably would have been Malik Monk, obviously prior to the injury, arguable 6th man of the year prior to that injury as well. And then, of course, Keegan Murray as well, the way he can shoot that 3-ball. He can shoot the hell out that thing. What he did to Golden State Warriors the other night really just showed what his ceiling could potentially be. However, OKC have scoring all the way around too. SGA, Jalen Williams, Chet. They even get complimentary help from, like your Josh Giddey doing his dirty work and the rebounds. And, of course, 3-ball from Dort. We'll see what happens in the end. I do still think OKC, I'll stick with them. However, if they do face Kings, it could be, of course, tricky. But I'll stick to my guns and still go with OKC in 6 games. Moving on to the number 4 seeded Los Angeles Clippers against the number 5 seeded Dallas Mavericks. Now, in terms of the Clippers, that was probably the most recent big three that's been created in terms of Kawhi, Harden, and Paul George. Now, Kawhi, he's staying with the Clippers. With James Harden, I'm pretty sure after this year, his contract's up. And next season, PG has 1 more year, and then I think he has a player option or something. So, long story short, with that core of players, this is their time. They need to do something this season to validate the moves that they made for bringing those 3 players together. Because they're all seasoned, they're all experienced when it comes to playoffs. Of course, they're in the older end of the spectrum, which of course is why people have question marks. However, in my opinion, the linchpin for the Clippers is Kawhi Leonard. His health is paramount for them having any success in the playoffs, in my opinion, just because of his efficiency and his defense. The way he plays is perfectly catered for playoffs, and the type of player that he is, of course, a former NBA champion. He's been there before. He's done it. So the Clippers really need to rally around him. And of course, his health is the most important thing. With Dallas now, I would say their acquisitions, maybe near the deadline, I think they got Gafford and PJ Washington, and they got rid of Grant Williams. I thought those were really good and intelligent moves, and it proved towards the latter end of the season. It gave them more size, interior defending, interior scoring, which was something that possibly they've lacked in previous seasons because they haven't been physical enough, tall enough to manage other teams that have had big centers, big fours. Do you know what I mean? Big forwards, sorry. So I would say with the Dallas Mavs, Luka's been going crazy, okay? He averages like 35, 9, and 9, whatever it is. Kyrie been going crazy. We know what he brings to the table. He's an assassin. He's been there before. He can hit the shot. I think the importance with the Mavs is the chemistry that Kyrie and Luka have built over the regular season this year that they struggled with last year. I think they figured out how to play with each other, how to build chemistry, and how to shot make, who to rely on, and the fact that they can rely on each other. I do actually think the Dallas Mavs are going to bounce the Clippers out of there. Even with everything I've said about the Clippers, I just think this project is maybe too far gone. And even their regular season performance showed that it was all right. But I think there's too many chefs in that kitchen. With that being said, and the Dallas Mavericks around the last 20-ish games of the season, well, they went 16-4, and they were 16-2 in the last 18 games of the season with the #1 defensive rating in the NBA during that time. So that's why I think the Mavs will win this 4-1. I think the Clippers get one game, 1-2 max. And I think Luka will average a 30-point triple-double the whole time. The next matchup to look at is the #3 Minnesota Timberwolves versus the #6 Phoenix Suns. Now, with the Wolves, they were the #1 defensive rated team in the regular season. And look, Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, that's fantastic perimeter defending. Now, I would say they also have arguably the defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. I know people are bored giving him defensive player of the year, but he's the best defensive player in the best defensive team. For me, it's kind of a no-brainer who should win that. They have Karl Anthony Towns, who's a versatile big, stretches the court with his three-point shooting. And then, of course, they have the man, the scorer in Anthony Edwards. Now, when it comes to the Suns, I think they're going to do everything in their power to make sure they're not beat by Anthony Edwards. They're going to make sure, or do their best to make sure he passes the ball and they're not beat by him. This is where I think the Timberwolves are going to end up having problems. Because now, on the Phoenix Suns side, of course, they have Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. Now, they might have mortgaged their whole future for the next 6 years with no first-round picks until 2030, I believe it is. However, that type of pressure might make diamonds. With KD, Beal, and Booker, that's arguably 90 points a night, 30 each. They could walk into that. They could do that even off just mid-range. Now, the fact that the Suns have that much in their firepower and the Timberwolves mainly have Anthony Edwards and Cat, I would say. And even with Anthony Towns, I would sometimes say he wilts in big games. I've seen it before. And I do think in a game of this magnitude, even though it's round 1 of the playoffs, I'm not really sure. I've got more trust in Anthony Edwards showing up on a night-to-night basis on the playoffs than Karl Anthony Towns, even with all of the defensive solidity that the Timberwolves have. Because we have to bear in mind from the data that we've seen already, Suns went 3-0 on Timberwolves in the regular season, even beating them on the final day. And they weren't like close games. I think they were like 10, 15 plus points or more in each of them. Like, they dominated them. So, look, it's playoff ball. A lot can happen. and defense is always paramount. However, I just think when it comes down to the clutch buckets, Suns are going to be 3 versus 1 uh, when it comes down to it. And I think for that reason, overall, I'm going to actually have a hot take and say the Timberwolves get swept by the Phoenix Suns in 4 games. There, I said it. Okay? I let it off. Make of it what you will. But yeah, I think the Suns sweep the Timberwolves 4-zip. Sticking with the West, arguably the most anticipated matchup in the West, we have the number 2 seeded Denver Nuggets against the number 7 seeded Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the Lakers have been on form of recent. I believe they won 12 of their last 14 games to end the regular season. So they're hot right now. LeBron James, he's shooting over 40% from 3, over 50% field goals. I believe his true shooting percentage is the best it's been since he was 29 years old. I heard a stat earlier. And he's 39, by the way. So the fact he's shooting better 10 years on, terrifying. He's an anomaly anyway. Of course, Anthony Davis, he's been fantastic this year too. Probably top 3 in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. And then you have D'Angelo Russell, who's been playing fantastic. Playmaking, assisting, scoring the ball, 3-point shooting. I haven't seen this kind of mature level of D'Angelo Russell in a few years. Maybe not since he was at like the Nets. Now, the Denver Nuggets are still a scary team. And rightly so, defending champs. And are, of course, trying to go back-to-back. Now, with the Nuggets, they just have so much size, and then they can score the free ball so well too, which the Lakers know of, because some of the shots that they were making in the playoffs last year against AD and LeBron with hands in their face, Jokic was chucking it, Murray chucking it, Michael Porter Jr. chucking it, everything was hitting, everything was falling. I wouldn't quite say that same amount of luck can apply this time around, if we can call it luck, but the Lakers are going to have to defend much better than they did last time out in the playoffs when they played the Denver Nuggets. And I would say the omens aren't really in the Lakers' favor. Now, they've lost 8 of the last 10 games they faced against the Denver Nuggets. They went 3-0, well, 0-3, losing in the regular season against the Denver Nuggets. So it does kind of feel like the Nuggets have their number and they're enjoying their matchups with the Lakers. Now, I would like to give Lakers more of a chance. I really would. Even with the assistance of like Austin Reeves stepping up and helping, and Gabe Vincent, their acquisition from Miami Heat, like they're a little bit better, but not that much better in my opinion. So I think I would like to just go with the consensus, and I do think the Nuggets beat the Lakers, although because of their matchups being so close, usually all the time, but Nuggets just seem to finish those games always better. I would like to say it's going to be a competitive series, and it's possibly going to go to a game 7, especially with it being the first round. This suits the Lakers a bit more. There's a bit more gap, respite in between games, and obviously before even the round starts from the end of the regular season. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets in 6 or 7. I wanted to say 3-2. I wanted to say 4-2 the Nuggets, sorry. But it could be a 4-3 as well. So, yeah. I think it's going to be much closer, much tighter, but eventually the Nuggets are just going to prevail. Eastern Conference playoffs. Moving over to the East. First seed Boston Celtics versus either the Miami Heat or the Chicago Bulls. To be honest, I'm not even going to wax too much lyrical about this. Boston Celtics are ridiculously strong this year. Of course, with Drew Holiday being the main acquisition and the main difference, they still have kept, of course, Derek White. It goes without saying, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all of them are shooting the ball unbelievably this year. Even complementary pieces such as Al Horford, Pritchard, like they can score and in bunches. So I would say whoever they get out of Miami Heat and Chicago Bulls, especially with Miami Heat losing Jimmy Butler down to an injury towards the end of the regular season. I think he's got an MCL injury. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Regardless, I just think Celtics, whether they get Bulls or Heat, they're going to sweep them. And they're going to move on to the next round. It's probably the best year for Boston Celtics in a while in terms of the confidence that they're bringing into the playoffs. They won the most games in the NBA during the regular season, and it did just seem like it was a foregone conclusion in the East for them to be the number one seed. So yeah, I think the Celtics, whoever they get in that first round, 4-0, sweep it, moving on, get their rest, face their next challenge. Moving on to the next matchup in the East, we have the number 4 Cleveland Cavaliers against the number 5 Orlando Magic. Now, with the Magic, they have some good young rising star talent in the form of Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Suggs. They did split the regular season matchup with the Cavs 2-2, and they do actually have the 4th best defensive rating in the NBA during the regular season. Unfortunately, they also ranked dead last for three-pointers made in the regular season. And when it comes to playoffs, that cannot translate because you have to be able to hit threes. You have to be able to score points, and twos don't cut it, especially when the other team's scoring threes. When it comes to the Cavs now, I would say they've actually faltered a little bit towards the end of the regular season. Barring they had a lot of injury trouble between Mobley, Garland, and Mitchell. They've missed chunks of the season all the way throughout. And I would say if they manage to maintain the health of those 3 guys throughout most of the season, they probably finish in a higher seed than they've actually ended up in with facing the Magic. So when it comes down to it, I'll say the Cavs have more experience. They have the better scorers. I do think between the 2 teams, this is going to be a low-scoring affair and a bit scrappy. However, Cavs have the best player on the court between the 2 with Mitchell, and I just think between their scoring and their ability to score the ball and their ability to probably limit Orlando's scoring the ball is going to result in the Cavs pushing through into the next round. So I'm going to go with Cavs in 5 and say Cavs beat Magic 4-1. I think Magic will get 1 game, one of the home games, and the rest of the time it should be all Cleveland. The next matchup in the East is the number 3 Milwaukee Bucks against the number 6 seed Indiana Pacers. Now, I do think this could be a banana skin for the Bucks. Although, of course, they are seeded higher, the Pacers are the number 1 offensive team in the NBA this regular season, number 2 offensive rating too. So they put up a lot of points. They made a big move for Pascal Siakam on the trade deadline day to help with the scoring burden and, of course, balance out that offense with Halliburton, of course, leading the line, assist machine. And that is one thing I think Bucks tend to struggle against. They tend to struggle against true playmaking point guards. And I've seen this, I've noticed this trend, shall I say, over the last couple of seasons. For example, go back and watch LaMelo Ball against the Bucks whenever. Because in my eyes, he's a true playmaking point guard. And I just feel like he always smokes the Bucks. They just can't seem to quite handle it. Now, of course, they've acquired Damian Lillard themselves. Fantastic player, seasoned vet, extensive playoff experience, and can drop 40 points on any given night. And in this matchup, he might need to, because they're going to have to match Pacers' scoring. And that's where I think Bucks may struggle. Maybe. But it's going to be a shootout, regardless, between the 2 teams. Moving over to the final matchup of the East, but certainly not the least, it's the New York Knicks as the number 2 seed versus the Philadelphia 76ers as the number 7 seed. So the Knicks actually won this regular season matchup 3-1. although Joel Embiid only played one of those 3 losses. So that needs to be bear in mind. With the Knicks, Jalen Brunson's a beast. 30, 40 points any given night. And he's proved that. Especially when Julius Randle went down with an injury for the rest of the season, Brunson stepped up. They actually went 5-0 after that point. Alongside that, the acquisition of OG Anunoby from the Raptors, after they acquired him alongside Brunson, if they were in the Knicks team, the percentage of winning was far greater. I believe they went 20-3 in the matches that they played together. There's also DiVincenzo, arguably the most improved player of the NBA season. Hopefully he can win that award. And in terms of scoring, he can assist them. And I think he could probably drop 40 points in one of these matchups against the 76ers. I'm not sure which one, but they wouldn't be the same consistency as Brunson. But he definitely showcases he has that ability to get hot, stay hot. So with the 76ers now, Embiid is, of course, their shining light. They're going to have to lean on him, especially with his interior scoring, his ability to get to the free throw line, the fact that he can score threes. Very important for the success of the 76ers. Of course, alongside that, they have Tyrese Maxey, who can drop 30 points easily. And then they have great additional role players in terms of like Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum, and Buddy Hield. Can't believe I was forgetting Buddy. My buddy. But of course, yeah, 76ers can really hit the 3 ball as well if they need to. And if I'm honest, to take over the Knicks, they're going to have to. When it comes down to predicting who's actually going to see through this matchup, it's difficult because they're 2 teams that are strong enough to be in the playoffs, but sometimes they're a bit broken in terms of their consistency of performance. So if 76ers can shackle Brunson, they're going to go through. If the Knicks can shackle Embiid, then they're going to go through. So with that being said, I do think this goes to a Game 7. I do think with Embiid back, the 76ers are going to have just a little bit too much for the New York Knicks. Although, if anyone has anything to say about that, it will be Jalen Brunson. But yeah, I'm going to go with 76ers winning this series 4-3 and taking themselves through to the next round.